In this video, we're going to be looking at the common tools used with the Tetrix kits. Over here on the left, we have some common wrenches. You'll notice that we have a short wrench here and a longer wrench. And this longer wrench is quite useful because one end is angled up a little bit. So it allows you to sort of apply it to the robot at an angle, really get some good torque, especially if you have a nut that's stuck or if you're trying to tighten something. The other common application for this really long wrench is that you can take a nut, put it in the end, and you can almost use it like an extended finger. So if you have a hard to reach place in a channel, you can put the nut in there, reach it into the robot, and then screw your screw in from the top. Okay, so those are two wrenches, and they're used for the nuts. Next, here in the middle, we have 4 sets of Allen keys, sometimes called a hex wrench. These hex wrenches are used for the button cap screws that have a hexagonal head, and what we can do is take the appropriate sized hex key, fit it in, and turn it. Okay, using it this way, the length way, we can get quick rotations. But if you really need to torque something, get something really tight, or if something is really tight and you need to loosen it, you take your hex key and you use the short end, which allows you to apply a greater torque by pushing at the farther end of the hex key. So commonly if you do this, you'll put it in, you'll put a thumb down here to stabilize, and you'll turn it on the long end. Okay, so those are our hex keys. Quite useful tools. You are going to need the 4 of them. Different screws and different components have different needs for the sizes. Next, we have our most useful tool. This tool here is going to be your main screwdriver for the course. You're going to find you're going to use this yellow and black screwdriver quite a bit. It is just a ballpoint hex driver. So it's a hex driver like these hex keys, but where these hex keys have a very rigid or sharp edge, this one is rounded over, which allows you to apply it to these hex nuts, or hex bolts, sorry, and you can either go straight on, and sometimes if you need to, you can turn it slightly on an angle. That'll get you a rotation, but you have to be careful that you don't strip out anything when you're doing that. But there are times when you are going to have to use this on an angle and slowly rotate that bolt to get things to tighten or loosen. Okay, so that's our hex driver. This is the most useful tool in the box. You're going to use that quite a bit. So we might as well take a second to talk about the 2 different screws, or 2 different bolts. Okay, so we have right here in my left hand, we have a 1/2 inch. And then over here in my right hand, this little one here on the tip of my finger, that is a 5/16. Depending on the application, you want to use a screw that suits your application. So if you have to go through quite a large piece of metal or a wheel or a few pieces of channel, you'd want to use this 1/2 inch screw here in my hand. And if you just have to attach 2 small pieces or something small, you'd use this smaller one at 5/16. It also has less clearance on the back end, so it's less chance to hook other components in your robot. Last but not least, might as well show this screw here. It is a button head screw. You'll notice that it has a much thinner diameter. There we go. Okay, I almost dropped it. So it has a much thinner diameter. This is for the servo. These screws strip. That means that the pattern up here breaks down quite easily. So when we strip it, we lose that pattern, so we can no longer turn it. But you'll notice that they both have the same sort of head style, which is rounded over. This is more of a pan head, this is more of a button head, but in both cases it reduces the clearance so that other parts don't hook it. Okay, so they're good for tight spaces. Going on here to the end, I'll put this back together, you'll find one of these in your box. Okay, this black screwdriver is a 4-in-1. The caps come off at the end. Okay, and you'll notice that there is a smaller end and a larger end, and then if you need a flat head, these come out, they pop out and they flip over and go back in. Okay, so I'm just going to take this off the camera for a second. Okay, I didn't want to hit the camera by mistake, but you'll notice that we have 2 different ends, and depending on which end you need, you put that on the outside and you just insert it back in. Okay, so that's our 4-in-1 screwdriver. Try to keep the caps on, keeps you from getting poked when you're reaching into the box. And last but not least, we have our 2-in-1 screwdriver here, which can be quite handy, gives you an extra tool in the box. The shaft comes out, both ends have a bit, and then you just insert it back. Okay. For this one to work properly, you do want to keep that metal collar here on the end. Okay. So those are the tools in your box. Thanks for watching this video, and in the next video we'll start talking about how to secure parts correctly.